said, it's going to be a very interesting topic, and that is an upcoming topic of artificial intelligence in arbitration. So we would be discussing this topic of artificial intelligence in arbitration. To begin with, I would like to make the usual disclaimer that this presentation is for general information only, and it's not intended to be treated as a legal advice. And if you need any legal advice, you can reach out to us or the organizers. Now, giving an outline for this session, after brief introduction, we will be discussing about data processing and research, how the artificial intelligence can help for speech recognition, legal prediction, arbitrator appointment, drafting of contracts and awards, other functions of artificial intelligence, and what are the downsides and what are the possible hurdles of artificial intelligence for the arbitration. To begin with the introduction, artificial intelligence as it stands was coined by a computer scientist way back in 1956. His name was John McCarthy, and he coined this particular term. What broadly it means that an algorithm which is embedded to a system enables it to understand, learn, apply in a particular consistent way that reflects the human reasoning, and such application can be broadly termed as an artificial intelligence. If you go by the normal dictionary definition of artificial intelligence, it is a theory and development of computer systems that are able to perform tasks normally requiring human intelligence, such as visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation between languages. So, having seen the broad aspect of the artificial intelligence, in my view, the sky is the limit, because what we as human beings can do can also be done by the robots or machines who can pose a threat to the legal profession to replace us and do the same functions which we are doing as lawyers, which can be done by the machines, where it may be more efficiently and more effectively than all of us. It will be taking less number of hours to finish the same task, and it would be much less expensive than what we as lawyers are used to charging our clients. So now we will discuss this, that how we can use it to our advantage, to focus on the real core advisory work which we can do, and we can use machines to kind of do the things which is routine or which is mechanical, and it can be easily done by the machines. But we will go slightly detail into various functions of the artificial intelligence, especially with focus to the arbitration world, and see how best we can use this particular technology to help us in streamlining the arbitration process. So when we come to the international arbitration, we have been witnessing increasing use of the technology. Yesterday, those who attended yesterday's thing, we spoke about virtual hearings and talking about how the technology can help to reduce the carbon footprint by allowing everybody to travel less and also attend the same kind of level of efficiency by using video conferencing technology. Other point we also touched upon yesterday and we will discuss in detail today is with regard to e-disclosure. In arbitration, in some jurisdiction, the disclosure of discovery and disclosure of documents is a major stage in any arbitration. And also use of cloud-based technology, for example, storage of data into clouds, or using technology which can really help to reduce the time and cost into the arbitration. All this can be used to streamline and expedite the arbitration process. If we talk about arbitration and artificial intelligence, the arbitral hearings can be conducted in a more collaborative manner using technological tools, video conferencing, e-discovery tools. For example, telepresence or the life-size images of each of the participants in the arbitration hearing. 3D holograms, which can provide three-dimensional images. Now we are looking each other in a two-dimensional image, where if you have 3D holograms, it could then bring a kind of virtual reality, as we discussed yesterday, into the arbitration process or the hearings, or or maybe evidence presentation. And those things can really help the arbitration to actually replace the physical arbitration, and we can move towards full-fledged virtual arbitration processes. AI is not restricted today for these limited functions, but has trickled down to many exciting avenues, which we will discuss as we go along. But today, AI has completely changed in last several years to be able to help in every step of the arbitration. It's not only restricted to the video conferencing, as we discussed yesterday, but it also helps in different stages of arbitration. So the one of those thing is data processing and research. So data processing is important aspect, and research is also very important, because ultimately a well-researched presentation before the arbitral tribunal would really make the case very, very strong. And ultimately, the data processing also is a crucial aspect of any arbitration. Now, if we talk of data processing, there are a number of legal services that are provided. They make to use the certain stages of arbitral processes more efficient with reduced human interface. Now, imagine a normal arbitration where the client comes to us. We have to go through all the documents to understand what the case is all about, and then come to the conclusion that these are the documents which are relevant to the matter, and then start drafting. Again, to apply the law to the facts, we have to go through the previous precedents and understand what is necessary for us to take a position before the arbitral tribunal. If it is a breach of contract, then we have to go through the contractual provisions and understand what are the provisions which will get attracted, and how much. So there's always a human interface, and it's a human ability to understand the problem and then solve the problem. Sometimes if we put enough information or a data set to the machine can also throw certain results. Now, that is a separate question, how accurate it is, but it can definitely help us as lawyers or arbitrators to come to a certain conclusion, which could be more predictable, or it could be more certain than any other human who can do it, because every human has his own limitation. Now, if you talk about processing large volumes of data, for example, in a big arbitration, you would have thousands and thousands of documents which needs to be stored, processed, read, and then we have to prepare the compilation for the arbitral tribunal, which we are going to rely upon. There may be documents which is not required to be disclosed, and sometimes if disclosed, it may go against the case of the party who is relying on those documents. So it's not a question of suppression of documents, but whether it is necessary to prove a case, or whether it is necessary to rely upon on those documents which are effectively going to be used before the arbitral tribunal. Now, AI can be used for handling and reviewing the documents, and especially during the stage of discovery. It is very, very important tools, because in arbitrations, as you may know, we use in some of the international arbitration a reference schedule, which has its own process, whereby a party who wants a other side to produce documents in their power and possession makes a request, and the other side has to go through all its records to understand whether these responsive documents are available or not. and if they are available, they have to produce, and if not, then they can give reasons for objecting to the production of these documents. Now that is where ultimately we have to see whether machine learning or the artificial intelligence could help in reducing the time or effort the lawyers would have to spend for that. Now there are some tools, for example, Kiara is a powerful machine learning software that identifies, extracts, and analyzes the text in contracts. So if you are having a huge contract, and recently we did an arbitration where the contract itself was running into 700 pages with all the general conditions of contract and special conditions of contract. Ultimately, we had to go through each and every document and clause to understand which are the important terms of the contract which could be identified. But if you put the certain search words, or if you put a certain proposition, then this kind of softwares can throw, and if you upload the document, then you can get the results. They can read the contract and underline important terms, thereby enhancing a reviewer's visibility on the contract. This is a very important tool. Of course, it's not a complete in itself, but this shows you that how we can use the software or machine learning to underline or identify the important terms of the contract or important documents which are required to be relied upon in an arbitration. Now, if we see the other such tool is Ross Intelligence. It delivers the complete collection of the relevant law in response to the query. So if you have a query, the law on that particular aspect can be delivered. Of course, now we have so many databases and they have different search terms. And if you know how to do proper research on online database, you can get a lot of result. But it still requires a lawyer to review each case and then come to the conclusion whether that case is relevant or not. Whereas this particular technology could give you all the relevant law in respect to a particular aspect of the arbitration. For example, quantification of damages. You can get all the law which will be applicable for that particular governing law of the contract to give you the answer on each of the issues which are involved in the arbitration. So what benefit it brings is it gives a quicker finding of the relevant laws, judgment and responses, and also provides a few explanatory paragraphs along with the search results. So this could be a very good tool for the future generation. Of course, that takes away the ability of the lawyers to analyze the law in more in-depth manner and restricts the research to only what is thrown by this software, which is for own understanding or own development as a lawyer is not that good. But if you have a time constraint or a cost constraint, then definitely this could really be helpful, or at least it would be helpful to begin with, and it gives you a kind of a guidance as to how this particular point has to be researched. So it should not be 100% relied upon, but it is a very important tool to find the relevant law and do the research as far as particular aspect of the arbitration is concerned. Now, if we are talking about the data processing and research, there is also a software called Diligence Accelerator Program by eBrevia, which was launched in 2012. Now, what this technology does, it performs a partial review of database of documents with low cost and performs an exhaustive review with increased budget. So what happens is upon loading these documents into the system, this technology would return the sentences relating to the legal concepts that it has learned. Now, what happens is that this particular softwares, they get better and better by more use, because they get used to learning more about the way in which this particular softwares are used. And what it does is that it uses the e-briefs and also gives the results which are really important for a particular case. Now, there is another software which is called e-briefs. Is also what it does is that they bring a electronic copy of the brief and which make it searchable, and it also links the reference to the underlying documents and judicial precedents. So when you are using e-briefs, what it does is that for the arbitrator or for the counsel, you don't have to go to the documents, but when you are on that particular page, you can simply click and that will take you to the particular document. Similarly, the judicial precedents also, if you're relying on a case law, you can click on that particular link and then straight away go to the judicial precedent. So these kind of tools makes the life simple for all of us, and it is really helpful for parties to use but to save time and cost in arbitration, because at the end of the day, technology can be a great impetus in the arbitration process, where you can reduce the time which it takes to conclude the entire process. Now, if you see the other advantage of artificial intelligence is the speech recognition. Now, what it does is that it can identify different accents and languages and voice of particular individuals with precision. So once you have given a test, what it does is that it recognizes the speech and tries to give the results. For example, if you're doing transcription, it would record the hearing via microphone and provide a real-time transcript with speaker identification. Now, when we do arbitrations, what happens is that there is a live transcriber who has the machine, and that person then types whatever is spoken, and then it is appears on the screen. But if we use the machine who can identify the person who is speaking, so what happens is if the voice is recognized by the machine, it would give the name of the person who is speaking. So depending on the voice and the accent of the person, the accuracy level is very high if the machine is doing it. Otherwise, the humans are very expensive, because it's we sometimes wonder in India, why don't we have the live transcribers? Because we found out that it's a very difficult and it's very tiring thing to listen to somebody and keep typing on a real-time basis, where the person is speaking and the transcript appear on the screen at the same time. But if we can have machines to do the same job, we can definitely use this to our advantage. Now, if we talk about the translation, yesterday we touched upon about the translation, how it can be helpful during the arbitration process. Now, artificial intelligence can also translate thousands of documents in seconds with a very high accuracy. And it can include scanned copy, handwritten copy, or annotated documents. Now, this translation can be really helpful, because if you get the normal translation from a document, it takes time and it's very expensive. We sometimes pay per page to get the documents translation. But if we have this technology and we can rely upon it, which is very accurate, then that could really be helpful in the arbitration process. Interpretation is also very important, because when the witnesses, they don't speak the language of the arbitration, it becomes very difficult to continue with the cross-examination. Now, if we have the interpretation which is done by the machine, or it can be done very easily on an instantaneous basis, it would resolve a lot of problems of finding the interpreters in a particular jurisdiction. And sometimes we find that if the language is not widely spoken in that particular area, the interpreters are very expensive, or we have to call for interpreter from other jurisdiction for the arbitration. With the video conferencing or the machine learning, it can be very easy for the machines to interpret on a very quick basis, so that what happens is that when the arbitration is going on, the question is asked, it gets translated, and the translation can be on an instantaneous basis, and the person who has to answer the question can also answer in his language, and that again is translated into the language of the person who is asking the question. So these tools are very, very important for the whole process of arbitration, and we have been successfully using some of them. The next one is slightly tricky, and that is the legal prediction. If we talk about legal prediction, is another facet of artificial intelligence. And this is a trend which is starting now to predict what is the outcome, what are the chances of success. And many a times client asks us, what are the chances of success? And it's very difficult to tell in the beginning of the case, because there are so many factors and there are so many moving parts, which we are not able to understand how the case will unfold and who the arbitrator would be, and if the arbitrator is from a particular jurisdiction, what would be his or her disposition towards a particular case. But if you have a technology which has all the information which it needs to determine what would be the outcome, then definitely it could be a great tool to understand whether to go for an arbitration or to go for a mediation or to a settlement. Because if there is a low chance of success, of course, we can give those answers based on our experience. The more a lawyer is experienced, the person can predict what is likely to happen in a particular set of facts because of the sheer number of years into the profession that person has put in. But we have invariably seen that if we go and ask the most senior person in the profession, the fees is also very high, and you have to pay huge fees to get that particular opinion. Whereas if you standardize this whole process and give the information to a machine, the machine would not differentiate between anybody, and they can give the result in a more accurate way. Again, as I said earlier, it has its limited value. We can't 100% rely on it, but it is very helpful to get some indication as to what are the factors which can play against a party who is claiming a particular relief before the arbitral tribunal. So by this tool, what it is become possible is to determine the likelihood of succeeding in a separate claims and an overall success in the arbitration. So it can be broken up into a separate claims or the entire arbitration process, where the way the questions are asked, then the machine will give the answers. There is a such tool called Juremetrica by the Wolters Kluwer, and what it does is it analyzes millions of court decisions and provides a information on likelihood of success of an appeal filed before a Spanish court. So it is a very limited software which only is restricted to Spanish courts, because it's a civil law country and it has its own set of jurisprudence. So if we put all the cases into a machine and then say what are the chances of success, then you can get the result. But every case is a different case, and it may not be possible that a similar case has arisen in past, or a similar decision and the same facts have been rendered in past. And therefore, it's quite possible that you may not get the accurate result, but it really depends on the input which is given to the machine for the output it can give. So it is extremely important to see what is the database which is given to this softwares, and then it can use the legal prediction. So if you talk about the AI, it only can predict on the basis of the existing cases stored on the system. It also goes to the whole gamut of past judges who do a specific case and a general approach of the courts as a whole. As of now, we don't have anything to deal with the arbitration. Of course, there are a number of tools which are now getting introduced with regard to arbitration, which we will just discuss. But there are many such tools which are available for court system, where the case laws are public, because most of the awards are confidential, and therefore it is not available in public domain. So that is another challenge we face in arbitration, because arbitration, we don't have the complete set of information due to confidentiality obligation. But as far as courts are concerned, they are easily available, and they can be used to predict what kind of outcome can be there if the case is before a particular judge and the facts are similar to the previous cases. This technology also helps for the councils to look the relevant legal precedents and also come up with the nuanced case strategies, including potential settlement discussions. So when you know that you're not going to be successful, and for example, there is an 80% chance of you not being successful, then it's always better to at least try for a settlement. Because if the matter can get settled, then it could be an easy way to resolve the dispute rather than fighting and losing at the end of the whole process. So rather than putting good money after bad money, it's better to settle and try to find an amicable solution if you can know what are the chances of success. Obviously, as lawyers, we always tell the clients what are the chances of success, but that those answers have limitations, and likewise the machine can also have limitations. But if the more data you put into the machine, it can give more accurate results. The help of this particular tool is to reduce the time and cost of the legal research and data analysis. So if we have these tools, it can be really helpful to reduce time and cost for this particular aspect. Next one is that AI can also compute the bracket of the award of damages and cost, as also the time taken by a particular arbitral institution to make award. Now, what this does is that for any arbitration, quantification of damages is a very important aspect. Now, we see that most of the time we are having experts to determine the damages or quantification of damages, and then we also go for an expert evidence to determine what is the damages. Now we see that as far as the artificial intelligence is concerned, it can pose a great threat to the expert evidence, because the way the experts come up with is they put a particular formula. It could be a discounting cash flow method or any other method for arriving at a particular valuation. But if you have an artificial intelligence and you put all the data and the methodology for arriving at a particular valuation or the damages, it can really help for the arbitrator to come to a more informed decision, because then you are not relying upon individual experts. You are relying upon a well researched and well thought out outcome of a particular issue in the matter. For example, it could be a damages after taking into consideration all the facts and circumstances, or a valuation for which the award has to be made. Apart from that, this particular artificial intelligence can also give the prediction as to how much time an arbitral institution takes to administer the entire process. So that also shows the efficiency of the arbitral institutions, so that they are more efficient. And if there is a database which is available, it could show that what is the efficiency level of the arbitrators appointed by them, and what is the level of commitment of the arbitral institution for administering the arbitration on time. As I said earlier, AI's ability to gather, process, and present the facts about opposing counsel and their experience in certain kind of dispute, and also before a certain arbitrator, can be a great help to understand what strategies should be adopted. For example, if you have particular counsel and a particular arbitrator, how many times those have appeared against each other, and what was the answer to that, without naming, because the confidentiality will come in a way. But on the anonymous basis, if a data is collected and processed in a particular format, then it can throw very interesting results, which would then show that a particular counsel can argue a fact in a specific way, and same way an arbitrator can decide this issue in a particular way. Many times we don't appoint an arbitrator saying that no, this arbitrator may not be good enough for this kind of cases, because we have that perception or we have that knowledge on the basis of which we decide who should be our arbitrator. And if you have enough information about that particular person, then that can also help you to determine who should be your arbitrator and what would be the result if you are faced with such a person as an arbitrator. So that is a very important tool for understanding in terms of legal prediction, not only the outcome of the case, but who the arbitrator is and who the opposing counsel is. Therefore, the predictive technology holds a large potential for bringing about a significant change in the world of arbitration and third-party funding. Now, third-party funding also is an important tool for an arbitration, because sometimes the parties may not have enough funding to fund the arbitration, but the funder may be interested depending on the merits of the case. And if the funder can use the artificial intelligence, it could be a great tool to decide whether to fund a particular arbitration or not, because the funder is funding the whole arbitration for a benefit, and that benefit can be determined by more accurately if that can be used as a artificial intelligence tool to understand what are the chances of success, what is the merit and demerit of the case. And also it will be very interesting to the witness to use the of such an legal prediction extensively making its way into the world of arbitration. Because what happens is that if you are using this particular tool, many times we have started using it, but if you are using it in a more extensive way, then it can improve over a period of time and it can give the better results than before. So more use of artificial intelligence can make it more smarter. So that is the advantage of this particular technology, is that the more users are using it, it can be more helpful in throwing up the accurate results. So when we were talking about arbitrators, let us see how we can use the AI for arbitrator appointments. So we can use AI to completely overhaul the process of appointment of an arbitrators. Now, if we talk about traditionally, the arbitrator is appointed by parties. They have their own personal preferences or sensitivities. They know a particular person, or they have worked with particular set of arbitrators, but they may not be knowing many things which at the time of appointment, which can take the matter completely different. What is the advantage of the arbitration, as we all know, is that you can choose your own arbitrator, but your arbitration is as good as your arbitrators. So if you are having a wrong arbitrator, or an arbitrator has a bias, not in terms of independence or impartiality, but bias against a particular issue involved in the arbitration, or it has a he or she has a bias against a particular nationality, then it could be a very difficult to conduct an arbitration. And most of us and you, some of you in future will realize, then when we, especially international commercial arbitration, they have certain set notion against people coming from particular country, and it is very difficult to dispel those notions. As we go through the arbitrations, we know that even though the argument has the merits, they are rejected just because of the bias or prejudices the parties or the arbitrators are having against each other. So if you have a truly independent and impartial arbitrator, we can eliminate all these difficulties in the arbitrations. And the key to a successful arbitration is an appointment of an arbitrator. Nothing more than is required than better selection of the arbitrators. And if we can use artificial intelligence to help the particular decision making for appointment of an arbitrator, what it could do is wonders by making the process more objective and based on a concrete data. And it completely then eliminates the human factor and its subjectivities. So therefore, it is very important to use this kind of tools for arbitral appointments. It could be done by the arbitral institutions. Many times we have seen that the arbitrator or database is mentioned by the institutions, and these institutions, they are very careful before making repeat appointments of particular arbitrators if they have not performed previously in the cases of the same institutions or other institutions in effective way. and they have their own methodology to maintain these databases. But if you have a centralized database, or it can be a great tool to select your arbitration who is the best suited, having experience in that particular field of arbitration, in the sense if it is a very technical aspect, then you can have the expertise in that particular aspect of the subject matter, and availability, because availability is also very important. We have seen that more successful arbitrators are very busy, and there are many good arbitrators who are not that busy, but they are not considered for appointment. So all these things are very important as far as the arbitration is concerned. And the only way to make this successful is to gather sufficient and wide-ranging information relating to the arbitrators. Because if we don't have the sufficient information, it becomes very difficult to get the accurate results. And therefore, what we need to do is, these tools, what they do is they do proper research about the arbitrators by talking to the arbitrators themselves, or to their many legal counsels who represent in the arbitration, this thing, secretarial and administrative staff of the involved in the arbitrations. So many a times we get these questionnaires where the arbitrators are asked to fill up the questions, which would then make these tools to profile them in a particular way. Now, many arbitrators refuse to do so because they don't want to be part. But if we all realize that unless and until we be transparent, it will be very difficult to get repeat appointments. And therefore, it's a trend which will now going to change, is that you will have to disclose many things which otherwise you would not be making public. Now, what is the information which is collected can be helpful to have the appointment of an arbitrator and decide the incidental question of whether an arbitrator has a particular view in the similar dispute in the past, or in what manner that particular arbitrator conducts the arbitration proceedings. Is that person very inquisitive, or that person keeps silence while the hearing is going on? Whether the arbitrator is coming from a particular background, maybe common law background or civil law background, and their emotive capabilities, or whether they are going to also ask questions to the witnesses from the past experiences. We can judge people and try to give a generic idea about how best the arbitrators are going to behave in a particular circumstances, and also general likes and dislikes in the arbitration process. So some arbitrators like written submissions more than oral submissions. They focus more on oral testimony than the documents. So all these small things can play a major role in deciding who should be the arbitrator. Now, if we talk about the most advanced programs are also, they analyzes the behavioral patterns and calculate the inclination to allow or dismiss certain kinds of claims. So that is another level of the arbitrator appointment, is that you, apart from the suitability, independence and impartiality, we can also decide what is the likely outcome if the matter is decided by this particular person. And AI can also keep track of the arbitrator's number of pending cases and concluded arbitrations, so to determine the potential conflict of interest. So if how many cases, like in India, we have that a same law firm or the same party cannot appoint the same person as an arbitrator for more than 3 times in 3 years. So it's really helpful to know that how many cases are pending, how many cases are over before how much time, to at least decide whether this arbitrator can be appointed, or that person will be disqualified for being appointed. So these tools can really give an accurate result depending on the data which is feeded into these tools. But definitely arbitration appointment can be made mechanical without human intervention. And what it could do is that whenever a arbitral institution or a court is approached for appointment of an arbitrator, depending on the nature of the dispute, the amount involved in the dispute, or the requirement of the governing law or the experience of particular arbitral institution, the person who has filled in the data with the number of experiences the person has handled those cases. If it is a small claim, you can have relatively younger arbitrator to handle those cases, and if there are complex cases, you can have more senior arbitrators to decide. But all this can be decided by machine rather than humans, because then what we are doing is we are eliminating the what we used to call is that white man's club or any other kind of closed knit fraternity where the same people are appointed again and again. If we can broad base the pool of arbitrators, including the professionals and other experienced persons in arbitration, irrespective of whether they are from law background or not, and use the machine learning and the artificial intelligence to identify who is the best arbitrator for that particular case, and then also give opportunity to other persons to also get considered in a rotation basis. It could be then decided by the machine. Unless that person refuses or there is a conflict, that was the arbitrator can be appointed in a sequential manner. So as I see it, it's going to be a great tool for appointment of an arbitrator if it is used in a better way. Now, if you talk about the existing services, there are numerous databases that are providing arbitration related information. As I said, one of them is dispute resolution data. What it does is it collects the arbitration related data from critical sources, including most of the major international arbitration institutions. Although institutions are obligated to maintain confidentiality, but on a no-name basis or anonymous information without disclosing the name of the parties, if the arbitrators permit, they can disclose the data as to the number of cases handled by one particular arbitrator, time taken by that particular arbitrators to decide that issue, and what was the issue involved and how much of, or what was the decision by that particular person. The other such tool is arbitrator intelligence. Now, what it does is it makes available the responses to detailed surveys as completed by arbitration users who report on their experience with specific arbitrators. So the users of arbitrators, for example, if I have done, say, 100 arbitrations by now, then I would give the information about all the arbitrators I have dealt with without disclosing the name of the matters, that in a matters involving shareholders dispute, Mr. X behaved in a particular way. Now, if such information is collected from various sources, then it can be collated and then it can be presented in an intelligible way where it can give a lot of good output which can be used to determine who should be the arbitrator for a particular case. Now, if you talk about another such tool is Global Arbitration Reviews Arbitration Research Tool, ART, and that provides information about the individual arbitrators, including individual arbitrators' own replies as to their procedural preference and practices. So I received this particular questionnaire. It is so detailed, is that sometimes they know much more than even you can think of. And this particular tool is very, very effective because it is not relying on third-party information. It is relying on the information given by the arbitrators themselves. And why would arbitrators give this thing is that it is in another way of advertising, because if you are, if somebody wants to appoint an arbitrator and that person gives the parameters in this tool, in this ART, this tool will throw up names, and that would give a further opportunity for arbitrator to be considered or potential arbitrator to be appointed in a particular set of cases. And therefore, again, going forward, we will see more and more these tools coming up for giving the suggestions to for the arbitrator appointment. RBLex, again, which is recently launched, what they do is that they analyze the arbitrators, and what it is actually changing the practice of international arbitration by ranking arbitrators through a proprietary reasoning system to augment the decision making by law firms and litigation funds. So the third-party funders and law firms can use this tool, RBLex, to grade the arbitrators. So for example, if we put the names of the arbitrators or the type of cases, then we can get the result with the top 10 arbitrators who the law firms can consider or the lawyers can consider for appointment in that case. So all these tools are live tools, and we have seen a lot of growth in artificial intelligence, especially in the field of appointment of an arbitrators, and that is actually proving to be very, very helpful and an important aspect of artificial intelligence in arbitration field. The next topic is with regard to drafting of contracts and awards. Now, we have seen that drafting of contract is very important. So what AI can do is assist the parties at the transactional stage itself in a drafting of a dispute resolution clause which is best suited to the parties' requirements. Now, if we have a party from, say, US and a party from India, the first question comes is which is the governing law, which should be the governing law of the contract. Now that answer would depend on where is the performance of the contract. Then the next question comes is where should be the seat of arbitration? It should be a neutral place. Where, how many arbitrators you should have? You should have a 3 arbitrator or a sole arbitrator. Which institution you would go for? If you are going to Singapore as a seat, would you select ICC or CR? What is the value of the contract? And all these questions are asked to give an answer to draft the best dispute resolution clause. Now we have the model clauses of various institutions, but to reach there, we need to answer a lot of questions. But if we use the artificial intelligence for drafting of the contracts, if we put all this in a boxes, then the machine will draft the arbitration clause, which is most effective, and it can be implemented easily and give you the best arbitration. Of course, you can change it, but that is the use which we can make of artificial intelligence to come up at the drafting stage itself. Because we have seen number of times is that before we even start the arbitration, the litigation relating to the arbitration clause itself takes away a lot of time and cost of the parties. So before you even reach the merits of the arbitration, whether there is an existence of an arbitration or the disputes are arbitrable or not, or which institution the party selected, or which should be the seat, all these questions take away a lot of time of the court in determining these issues before the matter can be referred to an arbitration or the tribunal can be appointed. So if we have a well-drafted arbitration clause, of course, the lawyers are doing a great job, but many a times we face a situation where the arbitration clause is not drafted according to the requirements of the parties. And if you use the AI, it can really help to reduce that risk of litigation relating to the arbitration clause itself. And also, AI can process the factors such as appropriate language, suitable arbitration rules, place of performance of a contract, place of enforcement of an award, because many times you would like to have the interim relief from a court where the subject matter of arbitration is, and therefore the governing law of the contract should also take into the consideration where would be the performance of the contract be, and where the award, if at all is passed, will be enforceable. So therefore it's very important for parties' assets to be looked into for deciding all these factors. And if we get this right, many times we have seen that the parties settle the matter rather than going through the entire arbitration process, because they know that the award will come and it can be easily enforced. And if it can be easily enforced, then might as well you strike a settlement rather than going through the process of arbitration, losing it, and then allowing a party to enforce the award against the assets of those parties. As far as the awards are concerned, again, artificial intelligence can be a great tool to analyze all the facts, put the procedural orders in a perspective, also ensure the awards are accurate in terms of the calculations, there are no typographical mistakes. All these things can be very helpful to have an enforceable award which can be easily recognized and enforced. sometimes we have the procedural format of the award, because many times the arbitration institutions and the rules, they require a award to be in a particular format. And if the award can be put into a system, and the system can take care of the format, it can save a lot of time of the arbitrator to come to a award in a more effective way. And the decision can also be more enforceable, because at the time of setting aside, if all the processes are followed, then the court will have a very limited ability to set aside the award on a procedural grounds, and that something can be very, very helpful. Uh, uh, Staff drafting up certain standard portion of the award, AI again is very helpful tool. Parties description, who the lawyers are, who the witnesses were, and the procedural history of the arbitration, jurisdiction and governing law clauses, and the costs, because costs are again depends on the outcome of the arbitration. And if you have the costs which are provided by the parties, that can be also be drafted by artificial intelligence. You would have noticed that the reasoning part is not included here, because that is something AI may or may not be able to come up with an accurate decision making process. So as far as decision making process, is always good to be left to humans and not to the machines, because ultimately all of if you see the our arbitration act, it says the award should be reasoned award. And of course the reason has some link with the human intellect, and machine cannot of course they can give reasons, but the reasons would be not be for that particular case, and it will be dependent on the information which is fed into those machines. So therefore AI may not be able to come up with the reasons for the award. But apart from that, there are so many aspects of the award which can be taken care of by artificial intelligence. Now, there's a lot of debate about whether the robots will replace the arbitrators, and what are the advantages about it, and what we can do about it. It may be a far-fetched to imagine that dispute resolution by AI as a routine practice, but there are discussions and developments which are going on, and we will see some videos at the end of this presentation to give you some aspect about some academicians, what they feel about this. But an illustration we can give is a robot implemented by Colombian governments for resolving corporate disputes. Now, this robot poses questions to the presiding judges on the merits of the dispute, and automatically gives opinions on those questions, and also demonstrates the most applicable judicial precedents. So this is a tool which is very helpful for coming to conclusion by the courts. And similarly, if we can have the same kind of technology to make the decision, it can be very, very helpful for the arbitrators also. Now, in 2016, the researchers at the UCL of University of Pennsylvania and University of Sheffield developed an artificial intelligence software which analyzed the language used in submissions and previous judgments to predict the outcome of European Convention on Human Rights in 79% of the cases. So this artificial intelligence tool was very helpful for the human rights violation cases. Now, AI programs also have seen that they don't have any feelings or emotions, and cannot be prejudiced by irrational factors while making decisions. Sometimes we have seen that a particular lawyer or the counsel has behaved in a particular fashion with the arbitrators, and that also affects the decision making power. Whereas as far as artificial intelligence or the robots are concerned, they don't get affected by this kind of situations, and they don't punish the parties for the behavior of the counsels or not behaving in a particular way. It can be challenging to allege a conflict of interest or bias, which is again a very inherent to humans. So to eliminate bias or conflict of interest, maybe artificial intelligence could be a good answer to see whether we can use them for the decision-making process going forward. Therefore, the awards which will be given will be less susceptible to challenge on the basis of illogically and non-application of mind. While we have seen that in many of our cases, we say in the challenge of award that the arbitrators have not applied their mind. But if we have the machines, we can completely eliminate this kind of a situation where we can allege non-application of mind, because it would not only save time and cost, but it would come to an objective finding without any apprehensions, bias, or prejudices against particular issue or parties. So that way, artificial intelligence can be a great tool to help the parties to come to the conclusion. Apart from these main functions of artificial intelligence, there are a number of other functions. For example, artificial intelligence can be a good expert, since they are able to respond to technical questions and requiring complex analysis of several data. So as I said earlier, in determining a company's fair market value, now we go to the experts, we give them the data, the experts then analyze this data and they come to the conclusion. Thereafter, we have a ability to cross-examine that particular expert, or if there are two experts, then both of them are cross-examined together in hot tubbing, and that makes the whole arbitration process quite lengthy. Many times we have seen the oral hearings are focused around cross-examining the experts, but we have the machines who can do the same task. Then we don't have to doubt, because the processes are set and there is no subjectivity which is involved in decision making by these experts, which can be used by the machines. Now, AI can also be implemented to provide a prompt assistance on a routine arbitration queries. For example, learning from experience in Kunghai, where a robot has been implemented to cover more than 50,000 questions and answers on the subject in a range of disputes in areas such as marriage, labor, transport, consumer rights, social security, house demolitions, tourism, and private loans. So now we have these bots. What it does is that all the questions you may have, it has a pre-fed answers. So if you have any questions about the arbitration, is that what should be the governing law of the contract? If you put the question, the machine would have the answer depending on the question which is put. We have this machine learning. We see number of banks are using it now, and in any kind of information which we need is already given. The same can be used for legal research. It could be used for the queries relating to arbitration and relating to many other aspects of arbitration. So more and more we go for machine learning, the humans will become less significant in the whole process. And then you can keep only the intellectual aspects of the processes reserved to the humans, and the remaining aspects can be handled by the machine. Then you don't have to go to lawyers, because thereafter the machines can answer your questions to a certain extent. And what is needed is to strategize and to plan the case, which the machine may or may not be able to do going forward. So in my view, the lawyers cannot be eliminated, but the lawyer's role will definitely change when we have more and more machine learning and artificial intelligence. What we have seen in experience is AI is more suitable for secretarial assistance in the arbitration process. For example, it can be helpful to the secretaries to perform most substantive functions like performing legal research and also make summary of the legal submissions or evidence produced. So if you want to analyze the evidence, or you have to make list of dates, you have to make the legal research. This aspects of the legal practice or the arbitration practice can be then handled by the machines, and that can be a very important and helpful tool for the arbitrators to come to the conclusion. So these are the other functions. As we see that there are a lot of benefits of the artificial intelligence, but there are a number of hurdles in use of artificial intelligence, as we can imagine. Now, what are those hurdles? If we talk about possible hurdles in use of artificial intelligence is, one is excessive cost. Of course, it will reduce the cost in long run, but to set up this particular tools, it would be very, very expensive to put all the information, because it is very easy to make the applications, but to make them successful, huge data is required. And unless this data is accurate, there's no use of building such tools. So therefore, the initial cost of setting up these tools is quite prohibitive. And many times it becomes very difficult unless we have huge investors in who understands the benefit of this and who can make it work and make it broad based, so that you have a large user base who is ready to pay for it, because it cannot be free. And many times we are not sure of paying for something unless we know that the product is good, and it may take number of years for the success of that particular product. So although we know many such products, but we don't pay for these products unless and until somebody has used it and it's recommended that product. So the initial investment in making these artificial intelligence tools is very expensive. So that could be a challenge, and it could be a barrier to the new entrant who has an idea, but to implement that idea, you need a significant investment to bring about a good quality product which can be used by a huge number of people. Again, the other aspect which is very risky is uneven distribution of technology. Now, if you talk about the technology across the globe, the technological advancement and development is not equal. There are some countries who are developed, some countries are developing, some countries may have the bandwidth issue, and the information which this technology may gather may not be that sophisticated or accurate. The third aspect is lack of awareness and familiarity. Although, as I said, these tools are available, many people are not even aware about these tools. And sometimes if your lack of awareness can reduce the utility of the app or the tool, because if you're not familiar how to use it, or if you're not aware, then it may not be that popular. And if it is not popular, then it may not be easily available to the masses. So knowledge and awareness is also very important. Confidentiality of awards, as I said earlier, again poses a great risk to restrict the information, because many a times parties don't share any information about their arbitration, citing the confidentiality ground. The lack of cogent explanation for arriving the conclusions. So we know the conclusions, but we don't know the decision-making process which the machine would make to come to the conclusion. And that could be a challenge for the outcome, because then the award can be challenged, saying that the machine came to this conclusion, but we don't know the reason why the machine came to this conclusion. And therefore, artificial intelligence may not be that effective when it comes to explaining the rationale or the reasoning for coming to a particular conclusion. The other challenge which it faces is a lack of human virtues and abilities. Now, what are those abilities? Autonomy, human imitation, intrinsic moral value, moral accountability, privacy, reciprocity, conventionality, creativity, and authenticity of relationship. Now, a lot of things in arbitration is based on customs, usage, or the way we can do the justice. Is the whole concept of justice and morality, which is also again a ground of public policy for setting aside or of the award, or refusing to enforce an award. Now, this part of public policy cannot be there in machines, because they don't have a lot of abilities which humans can have. And that's the reason why the artificial intelligence may not be that successful in completely replacing the lawyers or the arbitrators. And therefore, some aspect of the arbitration processes can be outsourced to artificial intelligence, but not the entire process. And it will take years for us to reach that level, but maybe it may not be accurate and it may not be well accepted in all the jurisdictions. Maybe some jurisdiction may have an ability to accept it, but I don't think there is a foolproof technology which can conduct the arbitration without involvement of humans. As we discussed yesterday, cyber security risk and malicious viruses and hacking. So if you have the machines, it is vulnerable to a lot of human interventions like hacking, and threat to cyber security, and confidentiality being one of the important aspect of arbitration. It's very, very important that it is protected through and through, even after the arbitration. So it is of paramount importance that the security is maintained, and if you are using machines, it may be difficult to ensure such kind of technological protection while we are using the artificial intelligence. Now, if we have to see the survey, there was a survey conducted in last year by Perkins Coie, it's an international law firm, about how artificial intelligence and AI can be will be difficult to adopt, and the problems are that is because of the user experience. So the 25% of the people say that because of the user experience, it may not be helpful. Reluctance of many people to use it is around 14%. Investment and financing challenge could be 12%. There could be government oversight, because once everything is automated, and if the government intervenes, then there could be a risk, but that risk is in this survey, it is very minuscule, of only 1%. The content offerings and regulation and the legal risk could be is also respectively 24% and 13%, and the cost of this is also a major concern for this particular artificial intelligence. So as we see, there is a lot of benefits in artificial intelligence in the arbitration, but at the same time, there are a lot of challenges which we face while implementing the artificial intelligence. And therefore, it has not been that popular, or it is not that usual to use artificial intelligence in arbitration process. Although we dealt with various aspects of artificial intelligence in arbitration, and which can be used in a standalone basis, but not as a complete solution to the whole of the arbitration process. It may take number of years, it may be the future, but it is certainly not the present. Of course, the situation where we are in has helped us to think about it, to how better we can use technology, and we have already started using the technology. But apart from that, it is very difficult to predict how useful it would be as an entire process. But the parts of the process which we have seen, for example, arbitrators appointment or data analytics, document discovery, those things we can definitely use the technology to reduce the human time in the whole process. And as a result of it, it will be a very, very cost-effective process for the clients. Now, just as I said, we will see a couple of videos on this aspect. The first video is from Ed Walter from BYU Law School. He's answering a question: will robots replace lawyers? So let's see what is his view on this.
Will robots replace lawyers? No. Will they replace legal work? Absolutely. I think about e-discovery. When I was a baby lawyer 20 years ago, we used to do document production and document review and diligence work by hand. Lawyers would go through boxes and boxes and boxes. Now we use assisted review or predictive coding to do that kind of discovery work. Lawyers, there's more lawyers. Electronic discovery didn't replace lawyers, it just allowed them to practice at the top of their degree. I think a lot about a friend of mine named Billy Tarasio. She's a lawyer in Arizona, a family law lawyer. She found that she was doing the same 20 documents over and over for her clients. She hated it. It was expensive for them, tedious for her. So she automated all the documents. She posted them on her website and allowed clients to fill them out themselves and submit them to the courts. She thought her business was going to drop through the floor. Instead, it went through the roof. Her clients would call her and say, now we need to meet. And she would say, no, we don't. Just file your document in the court. And they would say, no, we need to meet because I need to tell my story. Billy thought that her business as a lawyer was filing documents and billing hours. That wasn't the value to her clients. For her clients, the value was someone to stand shoulder to shoulder with her and say, everything's going to be all right. Here's what's going to happen next. I've seen worse. The value of a lawyer can be more human. So I say, give to Caesar what is Caesar's. The things that are robotic about law practice should be done by machines, enabling lawyers to practice at the top of their degree, to do the things that are fundamentally human about lawyering. And hopefully that will mean that the practice is better, both for clients and for lawyers.
So we have seen that some of the things which can be done by the machine.
Hey guys, and welcome back to my channel. I've been getting a lot of questions about the legal job market in 2019, 2020. People who are wondering if they should enroll in law school, people who are in law school wondering if they'll be able to get a job when they graduate, and people who are already working to see if...
So we have seen that it really helps to do what the machine should do. We should leave it to the machines to handle, because at the same time we should not be scared of technology. Now the next video which I would like to play is by a well-known author, Richard Susskind. He said how the artificial intelligence will exclude the legal work. And just give me a moment, I'll just try to play the second video.
Artificial intelligence in mind. They think that the only way that you can make a computer system that can perform at the level of a human expert is by somehow knowing all the variables, knowing all the rules, knowing all the facts in advance, programming, as it were, and developing a system that is essentially a glorified decision tree. But the second generation of AI that we're seeing emerging, whether it be on the basis of big data or incredible processing power or what's known as machine learning, where these systems can learn from their own experience, it's wrong to think of them in a sense as a pre-programmed decision tree. They're far more flexible and sophisticated than this. Now, I do get troubled by a number of the systems that are widely touted that, frankly, their claims are over-exaggerated. We are many years, it seems to be, probably in the 2020s, before AI will have major impact on big law. So we shouldn't really be too concerned by the hype. But once we get into the 2020s, we'll see systems that will sort out legal problems. They'll even, it seems to me, and this is one of the findings of our book in the other professions, there are systems that will sort out the kinds of problems that we thought required human empathy or human judgment or human creativity. They won't work like human beings, but in the strength of vast amounts of data and brute force processing, these systems will produce outcomes, satisfaction for the clients, that it will often outstrip the human being. One of the problems with lawyers, and indeed with all professions, you know that phrase, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. We often think every problem looks like a legal problem, but generally our clients' problems are business problems. And so the kinds of problem solving and solution offering that these systems will deliver is often not based on a tight analysis of the law. In, for example, the area of disputes, these systems will be predicting the behavior of courts and judges and litigators on particular subjects on the basis of statistics rather than, for example, articulating fine analogical arguments and engaging in complex legal reasoning. They'll answer the question that clients want answered. What's the chances of winning here? The lawyer will think that needs to be a complex legal argument, and I need to have mastery of all the information, and I need to have full familiarity with all the law. But in the end, just as the world's best chess players can be beaten by chess systems, human beings, lawyers, and many other professionals will be trumped, will be beaten in terms of outcome by brute force search and very large quantities of data. The legal profession is facing three main challenges, it seems to me. The first is the cost pressure, the more for less challenge. General counsel
So we saw what Richard Susskind had to say. He has written a book, Future of Profession, and this video was of 2016, where he's saying that after 4 years in 2020, we will see a lot of technology coming in. And we have actually seen, so that he was proved to be right. And his main concern is that in litigation or arbitration, we would see a lot of clients asking that what is the chances of success, and ultimately we have to answer these questions. And if we have these tools, it would be very easy for us to identify the chances of success and then see how best we can answer our clients. So these two videos show that, of course, artificial intelligence is not going to replace us, but it's going to be a good tool or assistance to the entire arbitration process, where we can make use of this great technological advancement to reduce the time we spend in the whole process of arbitration. So with that, I'll conclude my presentation, and I would be happy to answer any questions you may have on this particular aspect of today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And that was really a learning experience. I'll be starting with question and answer. The first question is, do you think generation options outside could be limited if artificial intelligence is used for calculation or finalization of arbitral award? What are the specific tasks can be given to AI in arbitral proceedings?
So as I discussed earlier also during the presentation, is that there are various aspects of the arbitration can be given to artificial intelligence, starting from the arbitrator appointment, production of documents, storage of information, also calculating the damages or valuation of particular of the shares or the damages which we can assess. So writing of the award, drafting of the arbitration clause. So there are so many advantages of artificial intelligence which can be used by the users of the arbitration. Of course, in a limited way, but those use are very, very helpful in terms of the entire process of arbitration. So, but it would restrict the future lawyers to do many things which we are doing right now. So we have to retrain ourselves to work alongside the technology and focus on the aspects which the technology cannot do. Because many times we are using humans to do things as on date, which may not be available for the future generations. So it will really pose certain challenges for young professionals as on date. And all of us are now very well equipped to use the technology, but that doesn't mean that they will replace us. As we saw both the experts speaking on the video, is that they are not predicting that the artificial intelligence will replace the lawyers, but it can definitely be used by lawyers to assist them in the arbitration process or litigation process. And that is the difference between now and the future, or use of artificial intelligence to help us to come to a better process which can then give us the good results. So that's the use of artificial intelligence in my view, which we all can make to the maximum advantage to ourselves, and then definitely the users of arbitration, that is the clients, will see the difference in the processes we follow as of now and after use of artificial intelligence.
Second question, isn't examining behavioral patterns of arbitrators somehow akin to forum shopping in spirit?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because ultimately we are trying to decide who should be your judge and then trying to game the outcome of the arbitration process. But if I can ask, is it not the advantage of arbitration is a party autonomy, is that you decide your own arbitrator, you decide your own process, and then you decide who should decide your case. And there's nothing wrong in it because it is a contractual agreement between the parties who they then come to conclusion that, yes, if there is a dispute between both of us, we want this dispute to be decided by so and so. It is not at all a forum shopping, because what you are doing is, if you have an option, you are only selecting a person who can be not biased, but at least receptive to your case. So that is the difference between a forum shopping where you have 3 or 4 options and you go to a particular forum, but that doesn't mean that you are giving a jurisdiction to a particular forum. Here, you have an ability to select your arbitrator. Now it's entirely left to your discretion whom to select. And if you are using certain tools, and even today, we may not be using the artificial intelligence, but we use our intelligence to decide who should be the best person. And that comes as a human beings, that our mind is processing this, the same kind of information is that for this case, who would be the best person to be appointed. So the behavior of an arbitrator or a potential arbitrator, of course, is a very important aspect of decision making at the time of appointing an arbitrator. And if you have a scientific study or analytical data which gives you an answer that saves the time of doing the same process through human intervention, or it will give you a more predictable result. And that is what is more important in today's time and age, when you need more certainty, more predictability. And in my view, that's not forum shopping, but exercising the right which you have given at the to yourselves and to your other side of the contract at the time of entering the contract, which is party autonomy. And that gives the party to appoint an arbitrator of its choice. And that is where you are exercising that option and not really doing a forum shopping. So behavioral patterns are very important, but it's nothing wrong in doing it either with or without artificial intelligence.
Another question. Do we need artificial intelligence-based rules by arbitral institution and states?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure, sir. Do we need AI-based rules by arbitral institutions and states?
Yes, so when we start using the AI in a widespread basis, it would be necessary for parties to decide the contours of use. So, and therefore we may see the updation of the arbitral institutions arbitration rules, and we have seen number of arbitral institutions are already talking about it, of changing the rules, and we haven't come across any statute which provide for artificial intelligence. But today we don't have any legislation which also prohibit use of it. So it is not illegal to use artificial intelligence in this. We are using a lot of tools by consent of the parties. So that's not a problem at all in terms of usage of it. But yes, it would be really helpful to have a kind of a standardized structure or a procedural aspects which are defined by the arbitral institutions or the state legislatures for use of AI. because ultimately that would also give sanctity to the use of AI in the arbitration process. So yes, as of now, we don't have anything specific, but in time to come, we may see those changes in the arbitral institution rules as well as the state laws of every country.
Under the current framework of Arbitration Act, is it possible to have an AI arbitrator?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Under the current framework of the Arbitration Act, is it possible to have an AI arbitrator?
See, again, there is nothing called AI arbitrator. So, see, arbitration has to be decided by the human arbitrators only. So, arbitrator has to be appointed by the parties. Yes, you can use AI to select your arbitrator, but it is not that the decision is given by the machine. So, today it's not possible to have an AI arbitrator to decide your case. The arbitrator has to be human being, and you can use AI to appoint arbitrators, or during the arbitration processes you can use AI. But we have not come across any such jurisdiction where it allows the machine to make decisions. Of course, ODR, which is online dispute resolution, which is quite different from arbitration, can have this situation where you can have the machines who are deciding the dispute based on the facts, but those are very low value consumer disputes, or the disputes which are decided by the machines on the basis of the set parameters. Again, parties have to agree to that. So ODR is quite different from AI in arbitration. So as of now, you cannot have AI arbitrator under Indian law.
Yes. AI promises to reduce costs, but it comes itself at a high cost. Will this not deepen the accessibility and resource divide within the arbitration world?
Yes, so ultimately we have to see that every technology which comes in, is the intent is to reduce cost, but the investment cost is very high. So accessibility in the beginning has to be there. It's only the way to break this impasse is to have somebody to invest into this technology and make it so popular that they can recover that cost of investment. So that is the only way we can use AI for the benefit of the arbitration world, is to have people who believe into it to put in money, and the people who believe into it in using it widespreadly and pay for it in small portions, where you can then recover the initial cost of investment. So no matter what technology we talk about, there is an initial investment which somebody will have to make. It could be physical hearing facilities, like in other jurisdictions we see you have Maxwell chambers, where in Singapore, which provides the physical hearing facilities with all the kinds of technology. Somebody has invested into it, but it is so popular that people are using it and they are recovering the cost. Whereas in AI, the only apprehension people have is that it may not be popular enough to recover the cost. So first, it's a demand and supply issue. If there is a high demand, there will be a lot of suppliers. But if there is a low demand, it will be very difficult for AI to become popular. And that is the topic I covered in the end, is that this is the big hurdle for AI to become popular. Despite its advantage, it may not be that popular in near future because of the initial entry barrier of the cost. But once we familiarize ourselves to this whole process, then it may be a very important tool, and it may become very, very accessible to everybody to use, like we are using the technology nowadays. But initially, if you can imagine, like Zoom and other technologies would have invested into it. But now, because of this situation, we are using it very frequently, and they have monetized it very easily. But somewhere the idea has to be there to put in money so that they can make huge return on their investment.
Thank you. Another question. Since arbitration attaches less importance to precedents, and it is said that no two arbitrations are alike, does it not partly defeat the requirement of AI predicting trends and chance of success?
Certainly. What it does is that, in fact, AI can be a great tool because you don't have the precedents. So what happens is that you don't, if it's a court, you can at least take 5 precedents and say that these 5 precedents are binding on this court. So there is a more predictability of this case going in this particular way. But in the arbitration, you don't have the precedent. So what you are doing is you are analyzing various arbitrators' decisions. Again, the problem is that as lawyers, we can't do it because there is a barrier of confidentiality. Now, for AI tool, it's very easy because they can anonymize those awards, just take the principles out of it, and then give the answer to the particular question without disclosing who the parties are. So in a way, AI, I would put it in the other way around, is that instead of being a less useful thing, it is most useful in the arbitration world because you don't have the precedents, you have the confidentiality problems, and if the AI can be used to come to a conclusion that in a same set of facts, how the arbitrators in different jurisdiction in applying the same law in the same facts have come to the conclusion without disclosing the names of the parties, that could be a great tool for me to decide the predictability, because we don't know. If the judge is known, you know exactly how the judge will behave. If we know what are the case laws which are binding to him. For example, if we are in a particular high court, we know all the cases of the high court dealing with that particular aspect when we do the research. And we also know that the Supreme Court cases are binding on the high courts. But for arbitrators, it's very difficult to say that, oh, the award which was passed 2 years back is binding on them. That's not possible. So in those circumstances, I feel AI can come to a great help to the arbitration fraternity to come to some conclusion as to what would be the outcome of this arbitration depending on the previous law, the judgments of the courts, and previous arbitrations. So that could be the use, according to me, even though arbitration awards are not binding on the future arbitrations.
So now I have a question, I mean, one or two. So, just now you said that we have the opportunity of redacting those precedents, I mean the awards, and then feeding that to AI. But the problem is the arbitration are of certain specified area. For example, there is an area of sports arbitration, then there is an area of investment arbitration. So for example, let's take international investment arbitration. What happens? There are multiple variables which influences the award. For example, the change in the law. So when it comes to training your artificial intelligence, the lack of, because investment arbitration cases, we have very limited number. How will we train those AI when we have less volume of cases to train them? And how will they predict? The lack of the awards, which is a problem, which I can see.
Yeah, so you're right, because if it is a specific aspect or sector of an arbitration where you don't have number of cases to come to the conclusion of predictability, it may be a challenge for an AI. But at the same time, imagine that you don't have any AI and you are now shooting into the dark. You have only 5 or 6 cases. So what it could do is it could not only analyze the arbitration, but the different courts jurisdiction also, and come to a conclusion on a particular field. Because if you see sports law, just to take your example, there are a number of courts across the world who have decided particular issues, but we as humans have very limited ability to go through everything, understand and do the research, because we are not trained in a particular jurisdiction to analyze that law. For example, a US law or US judgment, although we have American jurisprudence, but we don't know exactly how the US lawyers would do. But if the AI can simplify those things and they can try to present it in a way that it is more useful for the law, then it could be a great tool or a great help to the users of that AI for that aspect of the arbitration. So I feel that number of cases would be definitely a challenge, but if we combine it with other courts jurisprudence or the authors who have written on that particular aspect and come to a simplified answer to that question, that could be a amazing outcome of the use of artificial intelligence, especially when you don't have proper jurisprudence on that area of law.
So one last question. On the flip side of the predictability, suppose since AI depends on the consistency of the data which we feed, situation will happen that there could be a manipulation of the tribunal. For example, there was a research by Israeli Institute in which they found that judges give favorable outcome after lunch. So lunch was a factor which was affecting the judgment. So for example, if the parties submitting their pleadings somehow come to know, because since you just now give the insight that now the information regarding the arbitrators are out. So metadata can be used predicting how and when they analyze those cases and how they are coming to those outcomes. So the extraction from their work can be used in writing pleadings which can manipulate their judgment or in getting favorable arbitral award. And since we have and we cannot have any law to govern the pleadings, like you can't say that you can't write particular word or you can't write this way. So this would be a flip side when it comes to use of artificial intelligence, because a party who have money can use this AI, whereas those who don't may suffer because of this technology itself.
Yes. So what you are trying to say is that it can be misused to a certain extent, where parties who can afford AI can understand the strategy in much better fashion than the parties who don't have the ability to have an access to this. Yes, that could be a danger and a risk to the use of AI, because then you know something which the other side has no ability to know. But that is always true in the physical world also, that if you have an ability to hire best lawyers, you can get the better results. Or if you have an insider information, you can get better results. So those are the things which are there in the real world as well, where in AI can put it. But the whole idea is to make AI so broad-based is that everybody has the equal knowledge. Today, in the real world, you may have an ability to hire the best lawyer who has some information or access to judges, or ability or a face value to convince the judges. Whereas if you make it standardized and everybody has the same information, and it is not that expensive to afford these technologies, then ultimately that would be a great tool to help the parties to give a level playing field, because that differentiation is still there today, where the parties who are influential or they may have ability to spend money, they can get the results. But AI again is an answer to that in the virtual world, and it can be, depending on how we use it, everything has a pros and cons. So if it is an advantage, there is a disadvantage as well. But I personally feel that it could be a tool which can, in fact, bridge the gap between the influential and non-influential people, or the parties to the litigation process. So I feel the technology could be used to bridge that divide.
Thank you, sir. And there's one last question which says, please share your ODR experience with us, including bidding. I don't know what bidding is here. Please share your ODR experiences with us.
Yeah, there is one question before that also, that how an AI e-discovery will attain evidentiary value. Yeah, so if I can answer that question first. See, the e-discovery again is not done by the machine, but it is provided by the party. So how we do it, like if I have to do e-discovery and I do use my physical ability to search documents, or I use the technology, In the arbitration, the evidence is provided by the party only. So I don't see any difference between a process which is done manually or through e-discovery, and then the evidence is given, because ultimately the burden is on the party who is giving the evidence to prove the authenticity and genuineness of the evidence which is given. And if there is any doubt as to the existence or validity of that evidence, it has to be proved by oral evidence. So therefore, if a documentary evidence is denied, then either the existence or authenticity has to be proved by the parties. So even if we use AI, I don't see, or e-discovery, I don't see any problem with regard to the evidentiary value. And as regards experience on ODR, as I said, ODR is quite different than arbitration process, because ODR is where you have the dispute resolution which is online, in the sense that you have put all the information into the machine, and then the decision comes, which doesn't have the characteristic of an arbitration, because arbitration has to be conducted by the process either agreed by the parties or the law at the seat of the arbitration. For example, if the seat of arbitration is India, within India, then Indian Arbitration and Conciliation Act would be applicable. Whereas ODR is a consensus process of dispute resolution, which is done online. And therefore, to be very frank, I don't have any personal experience of ODR. But yes, it is used by many consumer and other companies, like online portals where you purchase goods from there. So either based on the information given, it's like an online grievance redressal. Either its amount is so small that the parties don't want to go to a full-fledged dispute resolution. Mostly, if you give 3 answers, for example, Uber does online dispute resolution. If you say that the driver has charged me wrongly, depending on your behavior and the complaint if you have given, if you every day you make a complaint against Uber driver, then the ODR will not decide in your favor. It is a rough and ready kind of a decision making process, where either this 10 rupees or 30 rupees is reversed to your account, or it is not reversed. Then you can take another recourse under law. But if you are happy with that process, then you close that issue there and then. So ODR is more of that kind of a dispute resolution, where you decide everything online without intervention of human. But ultimately, the AI into arbitration is a quite different, as we discussed during today's session, and that is something is very helpful tool for the arbitration process, and it's different from ODR.
On the question that PPTs will be shared or not, I would just like to clarify that the PPTs belong to Shardul Amarchand and Mangaldas property. We'll be sharing the videos on YouTube. You can have the, we'll share the link. You can see from there. So now I'll conclude the masterclass. I, R.V. Singh, member of Center for Alternative Dispute Resolution. On behalf of the university and all the participants, I would like to thank our facilitator, Mr. Tejas Karya sir, for taking his precious time out and consenting to be the lecturer for this masterclass. So indeed, it's a lesson worth taking. And I'm just not talking in terms of the contents of your lecture, but also a few things which I have personally observed and would like to share with all. The first thing is that I noticed how you prepared your notes for this masterclass, and which tells us one thing, that we must come well prepared for anything which we have given commitment to. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your insight. This event would not have been possible without the support of our Vice Chancellor and our Registrar. I have been fortunate to be assisted by our faculty coordinator, Mr. Gurmanpreet ma'am. Further, I would like to thank researchers for this masterclass, Swantika and Ayushi. Samiksha, Aditya and Surbhi, thank you for your technical support. And I thank all the participants for your patience and engaging in this masterclass. I once thanks to all for making this event successful. So thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. And now everyone can end this session. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.